And talking about like when you're hitting quota and they're moving your number and all of those pieces, the biggest problem working for like these big box companies, and I'm talking like your Strykers, your Zimmer, Medtronic, Novartis, my company, like all these other companies, they have a stack of resumes. So if you're going to bitch about how much you're getting paid, like get out of here. They got somebody else that
I
is
always
not
joke
making
around
that
with
much,
everybody,
and they're
right? Because
willing
I
to
was
take
that
your
kid,
job.
right? I was the kid making 60, 70K as a trainer, making and having some good months. And then every year I sometimes I made more. But it's like, you're going to pay me 100 plus K? Like, you're going to pay me six figures? I was like, and I said this in my resume, in my interview. I just grinded for the last 3 years at 100 hours a week, making no money. You think, I was like, you throw money my way? Now I was like, you haven't even seen me work, right? And so I've come in and I've done it, right?
Yeah.
But now there's the part of me, like I've had, like you and I talk, and I literally just had the talk with my manager last week. You know, like the market is the market. That's why I tell everybody they should be looking at it. I know, like I literally got an offer. Again, I'm not taking it, but like I got an offer. I could leave right now and make 40K right off the top, like no questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
Just that plan, I'm going to make 40 grand more. And so there's that stuff. But again, if I go to my company and be like, hey, I just got offered another 40K. What can you do? Well, the problem is with these big box companies, they don't look at it like that. They're not like, oh, here. No, they're like, well, Jake, you've only been a rep for 2 years. Well, to get the next promotion to be another 10 grand more than you're at now, you need to hit check mark 1, 2, 3 and have this much experience. And if you don't have those check
and
marks,
then they throw the big box name at you, like you're here, you have all of this stability, blah blah blah.
Let's
like,
have a talk.
As
Let's
we talked
talk
about
real quick about
before,
stability.
like,
That is like my one most biggest pet peeve. Let's just make this real clear. I work for the largest company in the world. I go up to my CPA and I tell her who I work for, and all I hear, amazing company, such a safe company. My biggest pet peeve, I didn't yell at her, but I'm like, what does that mean? What does safe mean? Because another division just laid off half its force in our company last week. Just laid them off because they didn't, and they restructured everyone's bonus. I just talked to one of my guys. A guy was #1 rep in the nation. He's not even going to hit President Club now because they restructured it. So you tell me what's safe, right? And everybody has this pre-notion of like, it's safe, but I'm like, it's safe until it's not with these big companies.
I'm like, it's safe in marketing and like compliance and all those other roles, but when it comes to sales, it's again feast or famine. Like if the organization of that sales unit is not performing, or the corporate believes it's not performing at where it should
100%.
be, you're out.
If you're
like,
not a top rep, you're out. And like that's why you guys should all know this, because this is why managers will be the most freaked out during those times. The managers are the easiest to replace because usually they're the one of the highest people. And as you and I know, I'm not saying managers don't do a lot, because they do, but I just talked to my buddy. They haven't had a manager in their territory for 3 months and they're all performing. Like managers do help. Like I'm not saying they don't, but they're very replaceable, because especially like if you hire the right candidates, like I tell everybody, that's one thing I actually love about my manager. I talk to my manager. The only time I talk to my manager is that when I'm like, hey, I just closed a $40,000 deal. Awesome. Good job. Or it's like, hey, I need this pushed because I just made a sale. Push it for delivery or put what. Like that's really my talk. I'm not really having conversations with my manager of like coaching, because I'm like, I kind of got this figured out. Nobody's been out here. And if you make the right hires, you really don't need it. But I just say that because usually when you see the restructuring of an organization, they usually are going to start with upper management first, because they're usually the senior people getting paid more money, and they know that the organizations normally can probably run without them, compared to like if you have a top sales rep that's making the company money. And let's talk more ortho, right? This is what happens all the time. When you're the ortho rep and you're the top rep, like I have a buddy for Stryker, top rep in the nation, just won President Club. He has all the power because he tells the company, hey, like let's say he works at Stryker and he's like, Zimmer just offered me 200 grand or like 100 grand more right away off base and commission. And he already knows he can leave and convert a couple of his doctors right away because he has those relationships. That's when you have the power. But when you're going to like kind of the upper management, like I said, you could be a manager for years. And again, this is me brand new, so I always take that with a grain of salt. But from the experience, I've talked with a lot of people, even managers, they're probably the first people to get chopped on the chopping block.
And to talk again about like knowing your worth, like 100%. I tell people all the time, and I learned this unfortunately in this role. So I wasn't doing this prior, but now that I learned this knowledge, like you might as well share it, right? And it is like always interview at least once a year within your space, if that's the space that you want to be in, or even like a sister space to what you do, and see what that market value is. Because if the discrepancy is that 40K, you have a leg to stand on, especially if you have an offer. And the problem though is I feel like a lot of people right now feel like they can't go up to their managers and have that conversation. And I thought that. I thought that like deeply. I was like, there's no way I can talk to like my manager about this. And it's been 2 times now where it's kind of bit me in the ass, where as I'm having that conversation before I've even said that I already have another job offer, they're like, what can we do to like try to make things better for you? And I'm like, at that point, I'm like, you fucking can't. I'm already taking this other offer. And I didn't even hear it out, like maybe they
can give you that raise,
better.
right? And like that's why I think it's important to go through. And also, let's just be straight up. This is what we do. It's sometimes you got to keep your skills up, right? Medical device sales interviews, like even me, right? I always laugh. Yeah. We teach people breaking in. Well, I've gone through a couple. I've gotten the offers on the couple. Like, okay, I still got it. I still can close and do everything that I'm talking about. But no, I think that's a great point that you're saying, because I have a lady, she's been in med device and now she's in the pharma world for 20 years. And she's told her VP every year, she's like, I'm going to interview with another company. And it's not because I hate this company, because here's the reality. Everyone thinks the grass is greener. And sometimes you interview and you're like, the grass isn't greener. Like, I'm in a great spot. Or you're like, oh, maybe I'm not in a great spot and I need to grow. And like that, oh, these guys are offering me $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 more to do the same job. Well, that's pretty interesting what people are. So again, I always have that talk. Again, I'm not here to like like company hop and do all that different stuff. But the conversation I do have, and I've had this with people, first off, if you ever leave a company, no matter what you do, even if you do it the right way, there's going to be people pissed off. It just is what it is. There's going to be people who hate you, who are going to say things about you. It doesn't matter. Like, it is what it is. But I've had this conversation with so many people. One of these guys actually just talked to me because they're a top rep. You have to be almost stupid to not consider jobs that are paying you $50,000 to $100,000 more to do the exact same job with possibly the same work-life balance.
Well, we talked about it. Yeah, we talked about it. There's a sense of, I want to say, in the older community, loyalty. And they believe that people like us, that I'm about to be like 3 years in the same role, which is pretty high for millennials, but it's the fact that like every 2 to 3 years, if you take on another challenge and you excel at that challenge, you have more skills in your toolbox than somebody that's been somewhere for 10 years. So if you have 10 years at, let's say 9 years, so that you can go 3 different companies. So 3 different companies and you have 9 years compared to somebody that has 9 years at the same company, in my opinion, and to the opinion of bigger like companies, they've even said it themselves. This person that has these 3 different experiences comes in with more of more growth potential than the person that's been somewhere for 9.
That's a talk, and it's a very good purpose, because I actually talked to a manager. They almost have the opposite, where they're like, we need to see you at a place for 5+ years, 8+ years, because that shows you're committed. You're not going to jump around. But like you just said, that's every manager is going to be different. Like we talk about this all the time. Everybody's going to have their different feelings. But then, like you said, I would argue, well, if I was at 3 different companies in in the 9 years instead of 1, I probably learned a lot more different skills, different processes, and I probably have way more relationships. good or bad, whatever that manager is looking at. But yeah, so I just wanted to touch on that since we are talking quota. I think this fits really into it. But again, you guys, once you break in, I tell people there's a lot of stuff like I'm talking to you guys about. I had no idea when I broke in, no idea. And then you get into it, and then it's like I talked to my buddy, and I'm like, "Oh, you left, and you're going to work half the amount of hours I do, and you just got a 50K base raise." Like without even trying, you're going to make 50K more. Like even with my bonus this year, I'm going to be lucky if I make what you did, and I work my ass off, and I am exceeding, and I'm in the top 10. And you're just at plan for your company and not even top 10. And like that's the talk I tell people. If that's 50K at plan, well, what happens if I'm coming in, I'm a high achiever, and I go and now I get a $30,000 to $50,000 payout check? Well, now I made not 50, I made 80 to 100K more than I would if I stayed at my current company. So like that's the